The smell of charcoal and sizzling meat carried across the backyard, but beneath the cheer I felt the weight of being the odd one out. I hadn't said a word when my sister raised her glass because I knew what was coming. Melissa thrived on moments like this. Even a picnic table with plastic cups could be her podium. She raised her voice, smiling as though the yard itself bent to her. To real work, real innovation. She turned to Brian, who grinned as though crowned. New investors, new opportunities, proof that risk pays off. Applause followed like clockwork. My name remained unspoken. It was an old pattern. At last year's Christmas dinner, she toasted her career that mattered while I sat 2 seats away, my service folded into silence. Tonight was simply another encore, except I could already sense thunder gathering not only in the Nebraska sky, but in the faint hum of my comms. Brian, never one to miss an opening, pulled out his phone. "Look here," he told Dad's screen glowing. Hotspot streaming in seconds. Meanwhile, government's stuck in dial-up. He winked at me. The table erupted laughter, spilling from cousins who didn't even understand the jab. I steadied my expression the way I had in places where stillness meant survival. Inside my jacket, the small radio vibrated with faint static. "Cell divert. Stand by." The clipped voice broke through, then faded. I silenced it quickly, lifting my glass instead. "Not here. Not yet." Melissa leaned close, perfume-sharp words sharper. "Still fetching coffee in D.C. The line was practice disguised as humor. Family chuckled again. Someone muttered, "At least she's good at it." Their laughter carried a sting sharper than open insult because it was casual, accepted normal. My fingers tightened around the stem of the glass. One sentence could burn her illusion to ash, but I held my tongue. Restraint was not defeat, it was habit discipline, and the knowledge that some wars are not fought at barbecue tables. I smiled faintly, let her bask, and stayed silent. The radio flared again, clearer this time. Inbound divert confirmed. Prepare for ground coordination. My pulse shifted. Timing had narrowed from abstract hours into measured minutes. I pushed my chair back, the scrape almost lost under fresh laughter. "Excuse me," I said softly, polite, as though leaving for air. I left the plate untouched, napkin folded with precision. Melissa's smirk followed, a glass raised in mocking farewell. She thought she had won by driving me away. In her story, I was still the minor chord beneath her melody. I reached the fence flag snapping in the summer wind. The sun cast long shadows across the grass, painting the yard in fractured gold. Storm clouds edged closer, heavy and inevitable. Her laughter still rang behind me, deliberate and cutting. I didn't flinch, but I stored every note as I had stored every slight before. I looked back at the table, Melissa basking in her audience, while only I knew the air was about to shift. The first roll of thunder passed above, but no one heard it over Melissa's laughter. When my radio buzzed again, I stood this time. I didn't sit back down. Her toast still clung to me, sharp as vinegar. At that table, I had been invisible, just another prop in her stage show. But the comms didn't care about Melissa's spotlight. They carried only one thing: duty. I lifted my voice so it cut across the clink of glasses. "Everyone needs to clear the backyard now." The silence that followed lasted all of 3 seconds. Then Melissa's laughter returned louder. "Oh, come on, my sister, the major, she thinks she's FEMA." She clutched her wine glass like a microphone. "Hide the potato salad, folks, rationing has begun." Laughter erupted. Phones pointed my way, hers streaming live. "Say hi to my viewers," she chimed, straight from Nebraska command. The red light blinked as comments scrolled, strangers snickering at a family barbecue. I refused to sit. Inside. Now. "This isn't a game." Brian smirked already, unlocking his phone. "See this? When I turn the hotspot on, bam, her government toys short out. Watch." He tapped and static screamed in my ear. Perfect timing. The family howled, convinced the gag was his genius. My jaw clenched. To them, I was an actress in her skit. To me, the crackling in my earpiece wasn't entertainment, it was warning. Yet I looked powerless, caught between roles, soldier on call, daughter at the table. Melissa seized it, thrusting her phone toward me. Rachel, give us your serious commander face. She mimicked a salute, sending the audience into another fit. I steadied my hands against the table edge, refusing to rise to her bait. Heat pricked under my collar, but I let it burn silently. Then came the scrape of wood against deck. Uncle Robert stood slow but firm, weathered cap shadowing his eyes. He had watched without a word until now. Enough, he said, voice gravel command laced in every syllable. He pointed at the children. Inside. Something shifted. The kids obeyed without a question, sensing authority older than Melissa's mockery. Robert shepherded them past her lens, his hand steady on a boy's shoulder. As he passed me, his eyes flicked up. No smile, just a look that said he knew the difference between bluster and truth. The static cleared. A voice came through, clean and sharp. USSS confirms Major Carter is temporary ground command until handoff. The words locked into me like steel. I nearly repeated them aloud but stopped. What good were titles here? On paper, I was commander. In their eyes, I was still the dramatic sister inventing storms for attention. Their smirks weighed heavier than metals. Robert slid the glass door shut behind the last child. The yard grew quieter, shadows stretching as the storm pulled closer. Then came a sound no one could mock, the heavy thrum of rotor blades rising beyond the tree line. The pitch deepened, rolling across the air like a warning too loud to ignore. As Uncle Robert closed the sliding door behind the children, the distant thrum of rotor blades cuts through the storm air. My family's laughter falters, but not yet their disbelief. The rotor blades drew closer, rattling the glass on the patio doors, yet my sister still streamed, grinning, into her phone. They mocked me until the shadow of a black hawk eclipsed the sun. Robert's choice to move the children spared them the chaos. Wind ripped across the yard, toppling cups, scattering paper plates, snapping flags like gunfire. Adults staggered back, clutching at their drinks. Melissa tilted her phone higher, hair whipping across her lipstick smile. "Guys, are you seeing this?" she shrieked to her viewers. Rachel actually called in props. The helicopter leveled over the front lawn, grass flattened beneath the gale. Then, with a thunderous churn, it settled onto the field. The door slid open. Boots hit the ground, precise, steady, indifferent to the shrieks of startled relatives. The first soldier approached, visor down, uniform immaculate. Captain Myers snapped to attention before me and raised a sharp salute. "Ground Commander Major Carter." Order's silence fell heavier than the downdraft. Wine glasses trembled in abandoned hands. Melissa's laugh cracked into a gasp. Her phone dipped, but not enough to hide the red light still burning. Brian shifted, trying to smirk, but his eyes darted, calculating. "This is staged," he muttered, forcing bravado. "She probably begged her Pentagon buddies for a cameo." He thumbed his phone. The screen pulsed. In my ear, static surged, drowning Myers's next words. I didn't flinch. Instead, I turned my head slightly, catching the flicker of his device. The interference spiked in perfect rhythm, a pattern. My breath steadied. Quietly, I tapped my comm unit twice, signal to log anomaly. Myers's brow furrowed, but he understood. Melissa regained her stage voice. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced to her invisible crowd, "my sister hijacked a military helicopter for clout. Welcome to her delusional audition." She spun the camera toward me, zooming tight. Comments exploded across her feed. The soldiers ignored her. Robert edged closer, his jaw set. His voice reached me alone. "They're digging their own graves." "Yes," I murmured, eyes fixed on Brian's glowing screen, "and they don't even know the ground's already collapsing." Melissa's voice rose shrill against the storm. "Look at her, pretending she's in charge while the real world runs on people like us." She gestured at Brian, who puffed up as though the moment demanded his swagger. He laughed, waving his phone toward Myers. "Hey, soldier, want faster Wi-Fi, government still on dial-up?" Myers's eyes hardened. He said nothing, but his silence was louder than rebuke. I felt the moment tipping. I stepped forward, shoulders squared, boots anchoring in the grass. My voice cut clean through the static, secure perimeter. Civilian area establish cordon. Communications relay on backup channel. The soldiers moved instantly. Barriers snapped open, radios flared alive. My authority was no longer theoretical. It was visible, commanding, real. Faces turned stunned, watching relatives scatter before the tide of organized action. But then the hiss returned, sharper, louder, drowning half the channel. Orders flickered, delayed. I caught Myers's glance at my brother-in-law, the smirk twitching across Brian's lips as his thumb danced over his screen. He thought he was clever. He thought he was still the one in control. Melissa's camera caught it all, her glee. Brian's posturing, my soldiers straining against interference. Every second recorded, every word locked in the archive she didn't know would become her indictment. I raised my hand, signaling halt. Myers leaned in. "Ma'am, confirmation, Air Force One is 10 minutes out." My sister's smile froze. They mocked me as nothing more than a paper pusher, until the roar of helicopter blades silenced every laugh. Melissa's toast still echoed in my ears, brittle and sharp, cutting through the barbecue smoke that curled over the white tents. She held her phone aloft, voice amplified for strangers who weren't here, but still her audience. "Here's my sister still bragging about her little desk job in D.C. Can we all clap?" The applause was scattered, awkward, as though relatives weren't sure if this was a performance or a command. I said nothing. My gaze stayed on the horizon. The lake shimmered bronze under the dipping sun, but beyond its glassy surface a vibration threaded the air, faint at first, then building. A steady chop-chop rolled toward us, subtle enough to be ignored by laughter but impossible for me to dismiss. Children were the first to notice. Mom-looky. Tiny fingers jabbed upward as the rhythmic thunder grew closer. Plastic cups tipped. Napkins whirled off tables. The white canopy strained against its stakes. Melissa's camera caught the chaos, her laugh pitched high, desperate to turn it into content. "Would you look at that? Even the storm knows how to crash my sister's pity party." But it wasn't a storm. The barbecue smoke scattered as if retreating from something larger. Over the tree line came the unmistakable silhouette, green fuselage, white top blades carving the sky with authority that no toast or smirk could ever rival. Marine One bore down over the lake. Conversations faltered. The music from the rented speaker stuttered into irrelevance. Parents shielded their children from the rotor wash, but their eyes, every single one, remained fixed on the gleam of the presidential seal painted on the side. Melissa's phone shook in her hand as the downwash tore through the tents. Plastic chairs toppled. A cooler skidded across the grass. She tried to laugh again, throat tight. "See," she called in. "Props again." The words barely carried. Her feed showed nothing but blurring blades, flapping tablecloths, and the blur of agents in dark suits fanning outward with mechanical precision. Secret Service moved like shadows, boots, firm gestures sharp. They said nothing to my family. Their silence was enough. Every relative who moments earlier had chuckled at Melissa's mockery now stood frozen, caught between disbelief and awe. The helicopter settled onto the sloping grass by the water, its landing skids pressing divots into the earth. The smell of jet fuel mingled with the fading sweetness of grilled meat. For a moment, two worlds collided, plastic forks and presidential machinery in the same backyard. The rotors slowed, though, still powerful enough to whip my hair across my face. Two Marines descended, first, uniforms, crisp eyes, impassive. They planted themselves at the perimeter as immovable as statues, ensuring order where only minutes ago there had been nothing but laughter at my expense. Then one agent broke formation and approached me directly. His headset crackled against the dying roar. "Ma'am, they're ready for you." Gasps cut through the crowd. Melissa froze, mid-sneer, her camera still rolling. On her screen, the live audience now saw me not as her punchline, but as the focal point of a scene that no editing could twist. Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time all day, she was silent. I turned toward her, letting the words fall steady, deliberate, carried by the wind that still tore at the tents. You wanted proof I wasn't just a government nobody. Here it is. The moment stretched. No laugh followed. No sarcastic retort. Only the collective intake of breath from people who finally understood that the lines Melissa had drawn around me no longer held. I stepped forward, the grass-whipping relatives gawking with mouths open. The Marines shifted subtly to flank me, guiding me toward the waiting aircraft. Each step carried the weight of years of dismissal, each heartbeat louder than the fading rotors. I stepped into the downdraft, my hair-whipping relatives staring slack-jawed. Marine One's door opens with mechanical weight. The chapter closes on Melissa's stunned whisper, "Oh my God, she's real." When the blades faded and silence returned, the ruins of my sister's mockery lay in plain view. The rotors slowed into a heavy thrum, stirring smoke from the grill and shivering the lake's bronze surface. I stepped back, shoes pressed into wet grass, and the silence that followed felt heavier than the roar. My family looked at one another in pieces, their chatter uncertain, their eyes darting. A picnic had become a tribunal. Melissa tried to seize control, her laugh pitched too high. She staged this. It's a trick. No way she's important enough. Her phone kept streaming red light, fixed comments rushing past her reflection. A cousin cut through with a sharp murmur. If it's staged, why are the Marines saluting her? The laughter flipped, breaking not toward me, but at her. I didn't smile. I straightened my blazer, lifted a glass of water untouched all evening, and gave the nearest Marine a quiet nod. "Thank you for the perimeter." He dipped his head in reply, small but undeniable. The gesture echoed louder than Melissa's rant. I returned to the table with measured steps, letting silence mark what words could not. Mom and Dad hovered, caught in an expression that blended pride, guilt, and hesitation. For years, they had applauded Melissa on command. Now their eyes slid away from her, as though her voice carried weight they could no longer hold. Around us, conversations shifted like weather mockery, dissolving into admiration, questions rising in whispers. How long? Why didn't she tell us? Melissa lunged, fingers locking on my sleeve. You think you can embarrass me? Her grip trembled. A Marine moved between us, his tone steady. Ma'am, step back. She froze, forced to release me. In that small instant, her power collapsed, not with drama, but with the absence of anyone who believed in her authority. I placed the glass down, smoothed the napkin, and let stillness speak. Robert leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, soldier's eyes softened but certain. He lifted 2 fingers in salute. I met it with the faintest nod. That quiet exchange was enough. The helicopter idled like a waiting witness, its seal gleaming against dusk. Shadows pooled under tents and plastic chairs. A child asked in a wavering voice, "Are we safe?" Robert answered, "For everyone, we are." His words settled the lawn more firmly than Melissa's livestream ever could. She spun back to her phone, voice strained. "See optics. She fooled you." But no one looked at her anymore. Neighbors stopped recording, family folded their arms, and the comments scrolling across her screen had turned against her. The spotlight she had built swallowed her whole. I stepped into the center of the yard, a place I had never been allowed to stand. The air smelled of smoke and wet grass, ordinary and extraordinary all at once. The crew waited behind me, the machine breathing like punctuation at the end of a sentence too long deferred. They said I was nothing. Tonight, the nation proved otherwise. Glasses clinked in uneasy chorus. Melissa stormed off her live stream, still running, comments chasing after her. "Who's the real fraud? Now I never asked for applause, but I ask you now. Stand with me in spirit." You've seen how easily laughter can become a weapon, how even family can cut deepest when they dismiss your worth. To those who read my story, let your comments be more than words. Let them carry strength for anyone fighting to be seen. And if I can leave you one piece of advice, it is this: never measure yourself by the noise of mockery. Truth always lands in its own time. Stand tall, stay steady, and let dignity be the loudest answer.